All right, hello everyone. Welcome to my first ever Facebook Live. So because this is new to me, I'd really appreciate it if you said hello in the chat box or in the comments, I guess they're called. Let me know that you can see and hear me. Let me know where you are and why you decided to join this Facebook Live. So, as you're doing that, I'll just let you know who I am and what's in store for you during this session. So, as you can see, my hair is wet because I was kind of rushing. I'm not very good at time management, but that is not what this Facebook Live is about. Thank goodness. This is all about how to master natural conversation skills as an introvert. Okay, and I can see we have people coming on. See Marco there. Hi, Marco. So please do feel free to say hello in the comments section. All right, so for those of you who don't know me, I know a lot of you already know me from my webinars, through my website Introverts Spring, and through my videos on YouTube. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm going to quickly introduce myself. And for those of you who already do know me, don't worry, I'm going to make it interesting. I'm going to keep it fresh, so you're not going to fall asleep. Okay, and I see people are saying hi, so hello everyone. Glad to see you here. Alrighty, so my name is Michaela Chung. I'm an author and online entrepreneur, as well as a unicorn. So what does that mean? Well, I write books, I create online resources to help introverts to develop true confidence and connections in their own any way. You might have seen my work in HuffPost, Inc., the Chicago Tribune, CBC News, and all over internet land. I kind of get around. But the two things I'm best known for are my website, Introverts Spring, which has helped millions of introverts to quietly revolutionize the way they see themselves, as well as my book, The Irresistible Introvert, which recently became an Amazon Canada bestseller. Woohoo! Okay, so that's enough of the boring, typical introduction of who I am. So now I have a little game just to help you get to know me better before we get started. So some of you might have heard of the icebreaker, 3 truths and a lie. So I'm going to tell you 3 truths about myself in no particular order. And within there, I'm also going to put 1 lie. So you guys can let me know in the comments which thing you think is the lie. So 3 things are true and 1 thing is a lie. So the first thing is that I've danced nearly naked in front of hundreds of people. The second thing is I have been on over 100 first dates. I'm sounding very promiscuous at the moment, but I assure you I'm going to explain all of these later, the ones that are true and the ones that aren't. Number 3, I was homecoming queen of my high school. Number 4, I spend about 50% of my time in my pajamas. Okay, so you guys can let me know which one of those you think is the lie. Out of all those 3, which one is the lie? So first I'll tell you that unfortunately dancing nearly naked in front of hundreds of people is true, but it's not because I was a stripper. It's because I was a competitive salsa dancer for several years, and I also tried out samba dancing. So my salsa outfits were pretty skimpy. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is with salsa. It's all sequins and skin, pretty much. But samba, the brief time I did do samba in Brisbane, Australia, now that is a very skimpy outfit. So, so that is true. Okay, so I see the answers coming in. So a lot of people think it's homecoming queen. That was the false one. One person says 100 first dates. Okay, so I'm going to go through them and tell you which one's the untrue one. So the 100 first dates is true. Now, I got to clarify this one. That is just a date, not sleeping with these people or anything like that. I just mean literally going out to dinner or going for a walk or something like that. Because several years ago, being the nerdy introvert that I am, I wanted to use myself as a guinea pig and try out going on as many dates as I could. So I accepted a date with anyone who asked, and I ended up going on over 100 first dates. So that's true. And I spend 50% of my time in my pajamas. That's an estimate, but I think, yes, that's true. Probably more actually, because when I sleep, I'm in my pajamas, so that's already part of the day. And then I spend the first several hours in the morning in my pajamas writing or doing something on my computer. So I do spend a lot of my time in my pajamas, which is pretty much an introvert's dream. So that's true. So that leaves homecoming queen is the false one. And if you knew me, if you really knew me, you know, of course, that that's not true. For one, because I'm Canadian. And in Canada, we don't have such a thing as a homecoming queen. And number two, for part of high school, I was, just a normal high school kid. But then around grade 11, I became very religious, and I was also like an honor roll student, very nerdy. So I wasn't into that kind of stuff. I wasn't really popular at that point. I was just really focused on church and students' council and that kind of thing. Okay, so I hope that little game made getting to know me a little more interesting. Now let's talk about introvert conversation skills and why it matters, why we introverts might need a different approach than extroverts. Because here's the thing, I am an introvert myself, so I know what it's like to feel misunderstood, strange, and even unlovable and weird because of your personality, because maybe you want to be alone more than other people. Maybe you don't always know what to say. Maybe you go quiet after a while, or you just wander off. My friends in high school used to make fun of me for this. They'd be like, you just disappear all the time, Michaela. Like, we're having a conversation and then I turn around and you're gone and you never tell us where you're going. So believe me, I understand all of that. And I also totally get the pain and the struggle of making conversation as an introvert. Because the truth is that our brains work differently than an extrovert's. Our brains are wired differently. We process more information at a given time, and therefore we need more time to think before we speak. So this is why we often get tongue-tied, or we speak so slowly that we get interrupted, which is really, really frustrating. And it also really is hard on us, hard on our self-esteem. Okay, so in a world where fast talking and gregariousness are praised, it can be really, really painful to feel like you're boring or uninteresting to talk to. And the worst part is that we introverts are perceptive. So we know that people are underestimating us or patronizing us. You know that feeling when you just know the person thinks you're not so smart, or that, you're only superficial, there's nothing deeper, because that's all you're able to share. You actually realize when people are underestimating you. And it's really tough when you know that you're so much more intelligent and fun and interesting than you might come off in conversation, especially in conversations with people you don't know that well. So that's why I do what I do. That's why I help introverts to gain confidence, connection, and conversation skills. And that's why today I'm sharing my secrets for being naturally engaging in conversation, even if you're introverted and you often don't know what to say. So during this webinar, you're going to discover how to overcome that awkward feeling and be naturally engaging. 3 easy steps to have an interesting conversation with anyone. So emphasis on the interesting, because a lot of conversations, especially small talk, can be really boring and draining for introverts. I'll also share my tip for mastering small talk, even if it makes you cringe, as well as the 3 P's of engagement that are essential for great conversations. All right, so And as we go, you can feel free to comment in the comment section or ask questions because there will be time for Q&A towards the end. And I'm also going to share, reveal a surprise that I've been working on that I haven't shared with anyone yet. Okay, so let's talk first about how to overcome awkwardness. Now, this one is probably going to surprise you. It surprised me. So the key to overcoming awkwardness, that awkward feeling in conversations, is actually knowing how to optimize both sides of your brain in conversation. So without getting too sciencey, because I'm not a science kind of person, I want to explain why the different sides of your brain are important in conversation and how you can kind of make them both work for you. So the left side of the brain, some of you might know, is known as the part responsible for logic, and it's also known as being responsible for oral language. So it determines if you respond quickly or you search for words. It's also responsible for higher order thinking, so it allows for those deep and meaningful conversations. That's mostly left brain. Okay, now the right side of the brain is actually important as well when it comes to conversation. A lot of people don't know this, but the right side is responsible for reading between the lines, for broad understanding. So intuition, getting jokes, creativity, and playfulness in conversation. So now take a moment to consider which side of your brain you use more in conversation. Now, as an introvert, it could be either. A lot of introverts are known for being really creative, and a lot of introverts are also very logical. So it might be that you use the left side more and you're able to plan ahead for your conversations. You have fairly good conversation skills, but they're lacking a little bit of spontaneity, a little bit of depth and humor. So take a moment to consider that and maybe share in the comments which side of your brain you think you use the most. Now, let's take a look at what a primarily left versus right brain conversation would look like. So for the left brain, starting with the left brain, so the more logical, speaking quickly, meaning-seeking kind of part of your brain. So imagine having a conversation with a computer programmer who has fairly good social skills. So this isn't a live in his mother's basement kind of a computer programmer who plays video games all the time. He's actually pretty social and can carry a conversation. So imagine, what would that conversation look like? Well, he's probably planned and practiced go-to responses to keep the conversation going. He probably has an arsenal of interesting questions to keep things engaging, and he's learned how to use bridge statements in conversation to launch the conversation into deeper topics. Okay, so he uses statements not just for no reason. He doesn't just say things for no purpose. He has a reason behind them, and usually it's to take things deeper. Overall, he's a good conversationalist, and he doesn't have to worry about awkward pauses or staying stuck in boring small talk. He doesn't come off as awkward, though maybe he comes off as a bit stiff. And through practice and planning, he feels pretty confident. So that's like the ideal, mostly left brain conversationalist. Now let's talk about the right brain conversationalist. Okay, so let's think of an artist who, again, has pretty decent social skills. She goes to a lot of social events like gallery openings, poetry readings, concerts. So she sounds pretty interesting, right? And she's used to making conversation. So the question is, what would those conversations look like? Well, she's probably not as planned and practiced as the more left brain computer programmer. However, she's highly intuitive and good at reading between the lines. She's relaxed enough to make some spontaneous jokes and ask some out of the box and even a little bit strange questions that instantly take the conversation in unexpected directions. Sometimes she goes silent, or she gets lost in her own daydreams and she forgets what she was about to say. But once the conversation is on a topic she's passionate about, she lights up and her passion and depth is magnetic. So I bet you've met both types of people, and I'm hoping you can see the benefits of both types of conversationalists. So today you'll learn how to integrate both sides so you can have quicker responses and always know what to say, but also feel relaxed and creative so you have more interesting conversations and you find the perfect balance between planning and spontaneity so you can be more playful in conversations. Because let's face it, we don't want to be stuck in boring conversations. If we're going to have a conversation, we want it to be interesting, right? So that's what this is all about. Okay, now I just want to see if there's any interesting comments. Okay, not seeing. Okay. All right. I don't know if I'm seeing these comments properly. Let me just check on got my iPad here so that I can see the comments better. Yeah, I don't know. All right, so let's talk about those, the first step to balance between the right and left part of the brain in conversation. And that is the 4 P's of engagement. So I said 3 P's, but actually there's a bonus one. There's 4 P's. So the 4 P's of engagement are planning, presence, perceptiveness, and playfulness. So as we kind of already touched on, the planning aspect is more left brain, right? So the person who is more left brain, they would do the planning ahead of time where they would prepare kind of the questions they have. They might take some courses or read some articles on how to make small talk, how to have interesting conversations. They might learn some phrases to carry the conversation deeper. So they have all these things prepared ahead of time. So they're not going in cold. They know they're always going to have something to say. And so this is one key thing. I think that a lot of people do realize, like, oh yeah, you can plan ahead for these kinds of conversations, these kinds of situations. But a lot of people only get stuck in this stage and they miss out on the next stage, which is presence. So planning can only get you so far, because if you're not fully present in a conversation, then you're going to miss out on all of those things that your right brain picks up on. So remember, your right brain reads between the lines. It picks up on subtle cues, jokes, facial expressions. So when you're fully present, you can pick up on these things and you can pick up on opportunities to take the conversation to a deeper level. So someone who knows how to use this skill of being present would do different rituals, mindfulness activities to make themselves more present in the situation. So I myself have a lot of things that I do, some strange rituals, some kind of well-known, to help me be more present before I go into social situations and during social situations. There are a lot of deep breathing exercises, a lot of mindfulness, meditation, that sort of thing. Exercise is also a great way to be more present. That's something that I'll do oftentimes before something where I know I'm going to have to be really on. So if I have to give a speech or if I have to talk to a lot of different people, I'll go for a run because it clears my head, it gets those endorphins going, it makes me feel more present and relaxed. Okay, so far we have planning, presence, and the next P is perceptiveness. So a conversation is a two-way thing. So as much as we plan ahead, as much as we get in our body and we're present, there is another person in there, and they can throw all our plans out the window, and they can react in ways that we didn't expect. And so if we are sticking to the plan very rigidly in like a left brain sort of way, then we're not going to be as perceptive. So perceptiveness is all about following cues from the other person. So looking at their body language to see, okay, they found what I just said interesting, or maybe they didn't, or their eyes lit up when they spoke about a particular topic. So maybe I should explore that topic more, ask them more questions to draw them out. And the good thing is, in the planning stage, you can come up with questions, question templates that naturally draw people out. Okay, so that's what perceptiveness is all about. It's about realizing that conversation is like a dance between two people. So there's some leading, some following. You have to follow the cues, and sometimes you also have to take the lead and carry on the conversation in directions that you think the other person will enjoy as well. Okay, and the fourth P is playfulness. Now, this one is all about the right brain, artist side. And this is the one I think a lot of introverts have difficulty with, especially in situations where we're in a group. Okay, sorry, I saw that the video was just paused for a second. So we're back on. Okay, so back to playfulness. This is something that a lot of introverts have trouble with, because playfulness is something that requires us to feel relaxed and present, and it's something we don't necessarily feel in a lot of social situations, because a lot of times, instead of feeling relaxed, we have like this invisible armor around us. And it's not because we're stuck up or because we're too closed off, as a lot of people think. It's actually because we are protecting our energy. Most of the time, it's because we're protecting our energy, because social situations are very draining for introverts. So one of the keys to feeling more playful in conversations, aside from the planning and the presence, is to actually go energized. Go into social situations with full batteries and take time out when you're starting to feel drained, because it's pretty hard to be playful when you are feeling like you just have to get out of there and be alone, and you have no more energy for mindless small talk. Okay, wonderful. So I'd like to hear from you guys what you think about the 4 Ps, and if you have any questions about how to do any of those. I'd love to hear from you in the chat box or in the comments, because I'm not sure if I'm seeing them come up properly. It seems like I'm not seeing the newest ones. I feel like I'm only seeing the older ones. So let me just take a moment to scroll down. Okay, there we go. Now I'm seeing the newer ones. Okay. So I see some interesting comments. Hector saying, my mind is always wandering off in conversations. I used to think that I may have had ADD, but I guess a lot of topics never caught my interest. Yes, definitely. I think that's a big thing. We need to be able to have those interesting conversations, learn how to direct the conversation onto more meaningful topics. And then Rowie says, I prefer to always spend my time with a smaller amount of people. And mindfulness, Sarah says mindfulness and working out are very important. Yes, absolutely. So thank you. I love your comments. Those are great comments. Okay, so before we dive into the 3 actionable steps to have an interesting conversation, where this is all going to be kind of tied together, I want to take a moment sorry, this is the beauty of live events, is you have some unexpected things. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so before we dive in to those 3 actionable steps and the Q&A, I want to take a moment to talk to you about that secret thing that I'm going to reveal that I've been working on. Because you might think, well, I've learned so much from this video. What else can she possibly teach me? Well, remember how I told you at the beginning that it's all about having the right and left brain in balance? Well, this thing that I'm going to share is all about how you can get the left brain stuff on autopilot so that you can relax and be creative in conversation. It's all there in my, drum roll please, brand new small talk quickies masterclass for introverts. So this is something brand new that I've just created. And in this, I also share my secret and kind of strange rituals for being more creative, playful, and intuitive, getting that right side of your brain going before socializing and during socializing so you can feel relaxed, interesting, and engaged. So I recognize that not everyone here, not all souls are brave enough to take this next level of conversation and small talk, because this is all small talk focused. But if you're ready to become a small talk ninja and feel naturally engaging in conversations, then I invite you to listen carefully, because I'm going to tell you exactly what this masterclass gives you. And then we're going to go on to those final 3 steps for interesting conversation. Okay, and before we dive into those goodies, I should tell you that there's a reason why this course is called Quickies. And it's not just to be catchy, it's because I know there are a lot of nerds, fellow nerds out there who just love to study everything they can and use themselves as guinea pigs like I do. But I wanted to make this masterclass as fast and done for you as possible. So it contains everything you need to master small talk in one day, plus bonus materials so you can get better and better long after the class ends. So it's perfect for you if you're someone who worries about buying courses and never finishing them, which is something I do, or getting overwhelmed by too much material. And you can really start applying this stuff right away. So at your next barbecue or your event with coworkers, really anything you have coming up. And this is exactly what many of my students have done. So just to give you a few examples, one of my students, Amy, had an experience at a barbecue where she was able to apply this. She says the conversation igniters and ebook were put into practice at a recent Labor Day barbecue. And she talks about how, while I do like meeting people and socializing, I find it exhausting. But this time I found myself much more present and grounded. I was able to interact with those present without being overwhelmed or overloaded. I had some great conversations that night, was able to expand upon initial introductions, kind of skip ahead, talk about really interesting things. So thank you for opening my eyes to better ways of communication. And thank you especially for helping me to learn more about myself in a compassionate, accepting, and loving way. So that's one example of someone applying right away. I think she sent me this message like within a week of learning these special small talk strategies. So right away, you can go into your next social situation feeling more relaxed with your arsenal of left brain tools, and also feeling relaxed and playful with your right brain tools. Okay, and Jenny says that she got noticed at work. She also says, my brain feels more relaxed and I feel more at ease in conversation. And one celebration I have to share with you is my consultant said that I have improved compared to when we first and second met. I have a warmer greeting, I speak more loudly, and I express myself more. Okay, and so I'll just share 2 for now. But So you might be wondering, what exactly is this small talk masterclass thing? What are you gonna get? So let me just share that with you now. Okay, so the small talk quickies masterclass is 2 hours. It takes place on Saturday, July 8th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific time. And there will be recordings, so you'll have opportunities to ask questions beforehand. As well, you're going to be getting icebreakers to ease into any conversation, done for you phrases, interesting questions to spark meaningful conversations, those bridge statements to take the conversation to more interesting topics, as well as intelligent tools to sidestep the most common small talk obstacles. So awkward silences, overthinking, interrupting extroverts. You're also going to get a checklist to be ready for your next social event, as well as an MP3 to strengthen your conversation muscle on the go. So you can hear those phrases, those questions, those bridge statements on your MP3 so they're fresh in your mind, as well as a workbook containing exercises and scripts to become a small talk ninja in no time. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and paste the information in the chat box. You can go look at it for yourself, and then we can go on to those 3 final steps. So let me just do that here. Maybe Marco, Marco has this as well. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so I think it should be, hopefully it should be there now. Okay, Marco, if it's not showing up, maybe you can just paste the link to the course or the class page right on there. Okay, there it is, I see it. Okay, perfect, perfect. All right, so I'll also just let you know quickly that you can get sign up for the masterclass right now for just $67. It's regularly $87. So that's when you sign up by Saturday. And if you sign up in the next hour, I'm also going to send you a special small talk MP3 where myself and another expert have an unscripted small talk conversation applying these principles. So you can actually hear us in conversation applying these things, because I know a lot of people are like me in that you don't actually learn things, or things don't actually fully settle in until you see an example or hear an example. Okay, so thanks everyone for writing in the chat box, and thanks Marco for confirming that everything is well. So the 3 steps to having an interesting conversation. Number 1, start simple. Okay, so we have icebreakers for a reason, because it's really, really intimidating to start a conversation going straight into the meat and trying to come up with something super interesting and captivating right off the bat. And this is something, I think it's a myth when you hear from, what are those guys called? PUA, like the people who teach you how to pick up girls, pickup artists. I mean, they try to come up with all these catchy pickup lines, and they don't work, because simplicity is what works best when you're entering into a conversation. So start the conversation with a simple icebreaker. Hi, my name's so-and-so. Nice to meet you. How are you? What brings you here today? Or how do you know so-and-so? Okay? Keep it simple to begin with. Next, the second thing is to make smart small talk. So this is the key, is smart. So regular small talk leads to dead-end conversations, because regular small talk has no purpose. Its purpose is just to fill empty airspace. However, smart small talk opens doors to deeper topics. Smart small talk uses the left brain to plan go-to responses, interesting questions, and icebreakers. And it also uses the right brain to be creative, spontaneous, and present. So smart small talk it's like a lubricant that allows you to slip into more deep conversations as opposed to just staying stuck in conversations about the weather. So if you learn how to actually use small talk to go deeper, then you're going to start to have interesting conversations. So let me give you an example of one sort of bridge statement that you could use to take small talk into a deeper conversation. So you might start off with, "That's really interesting that you fill in the blank. I'm curious to know more about XYZ." So it doesn't have to be that exact phrase, but that's really interesting that you decided to adopt a dog. I'd love to know more about what made you decide that or why you decided to do that. Okay, so you're affirming what the person said, and then you're taking it deeper. You're inviting deeper exploration of that topic that you already know they're excited about because you were using perceptiveness and you were paying attention to their body language cues. Okay, so that's just one example of how you would use small talk to take things deeper. Another example would be smart small talk uses a lot of a mix of affirming statements, stories, and questions. So the pitfall that I see most often in introvert conversations, especially with the very left brain conversationalists, the computer programmer guy we mentioned earlier, too many questions, rapid fire questions, and no affirming statements, no bridge statements, and no stories. So I actually have a friend who does this to me, and he's a good enough friend that I can joke about it with him, but he'll just ask me all these questions in concession. As soon as I answer one, he asks me another, and I say, "Is this an interrogation? You're interrogating me again." And sometimes they're questions I don't really feel comfortable answering. So that's what happens if you only focus on questions, and a lot of introverts use this as their default. So we want to get away from that and start integrating more of those go-to phrases and mix it up with statements, phrases, responses, questions, and stories, and keeping it all, again, relevant by using that right brain, picking up on people's cues, being present. Okay, so I was going to say another way to mix it up is to use affirming statements. So everybody likes to feel good. They like to feel like they are interesting, right? So that's why the last example I gave started off with, "That's interesting. I'm curious to know why. I'd love to know more." So you could say just even something like, "That's a really funny story," or "I'm really glad you said that. I'm really glad you shared that. That makes me feel better. That makes me feel good." Or "You're really fun to talk to." Those are affirming statements, affirming something that they said, that you got it, that "I totally get that. I'm so glad you said that," or "That's so interesting to me because." Okay, so that's just one example, and there are ways that you can make it super simple for yourself by planning ahead, having those responses and statements memorized, and just ad-libbing a little bit with your right brain. Okay, so step number 3 for having an interesting conversation is to practice, but not just in any way, but practice one aspect at a time. So the thing about us introverts is that we tend to be easily overwhelmed. So when somebody tells us we just need to get out there more and go to more meetups and go on more dates and do this and that and approach more people, that's really overwhelming. And especially when we have to think of we think we have to think of really interesting things to say all the time. And we feel like we have to really put ourselves out there to get the response that we wanted to make friends. But actually, you can scale it back a bit, and even just focusing on one of the concepts that I shared today is going to make a big difference. So even now, think of, what was the thing that stood out most to you? Was it the whole perceptiveness thing? Was it left brain versus right brain and getting more present? Whatever it was, that one thing is probably the thing that's going to have the biggest impact. And you can start off with that, okay? No need to get overwhelmed. So one thing you could focus on is just getting better at small talk, for example. And so when you sign up for my Small Talk Quickies Masterclass, I give you all the tools you need to start being a master at small talk right away, applying these phrases right away, and feeling at ease at your next social event instead of freezing up, worrying that you don't know what to say, coming off as awkward or shy. Okay, so we're ready for our Q&A. So please do, maybe some people have already started typing in the chat box, in the comments. But if not, please do start writing your questions and I will go ahead and answer them as best I can. And hopefully I can see them all because my scrolling function seems to be very delayed. So I don't think I'm seeing the newest comments right now. Okay, let's see. So Naomi says, what I have trouble with is more about telling my own stories. So this is one that is really challenging for a lot of introverts because it requires a lot of recall. It's like we're reaching into a playpen of rambunctious bunnies and we just have to find all the right words and all the right memories. And for introverts, that doesn't come as naturally. So oftentimes the conversation races away from us before we have the chance to remember all the things we wanted to share and to put them in the right order. And so again, this is something you can plan and practice for. The planning and the practice and the presence all have to go together because it's something that there's a structure to it, and the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And the good news is with stories, they don't have to be long as they follow the right structure. So what I mean by structure is if you watch a movie or if you read a book, or especially if you read like fairy tales, they all have kind of a specific structure, right? Like they have the hook at the beginning where the hero is kind of led astray. They're set on a new path. Okay, that's where the story begins. It's something different happens that sets the hero on a new path. Okay, and then the hero goes through these different obstacles along the way. They meet their guru or their guide, and there's the final battle. So there's the climax, and then there's the conclusion. Okay, so these are all aspects of fairy tales. And the interesting thing is that they are also the key aspects of an interesting story and conversation. However, that doesn't mean you're going to have to tell an epic long story. It just means that in every story, you're going to want to have a hook, a climax, and you're going to have to wrap it up and explain why that story was relevant. Because, I think this is what happens with introverts is we start telling a story and midway through we're like, what was my point? And by the end, we're like, oh, I didn't really, you can see the other person didn't really get why you were sharing it. So it's all about knowing that your story has that hook at the beginning, a climax, and a conclusion of why it's relevant, why it's funny, why it was ironic, all of that stuff. And so I get deeper into this topic in my courses and also in my Small Talk Wikis Masterclass coming up on July 8th. So I talk more about examples of how you use the structure, like what exactly does a hook look like, what exactly would a climax be, which is also known as the main conflict. And how do you wrap it up at the end? How do you have that punchline at the end so that you're not kind of left hanging, because if you don't have the right punchline at the end or the right conclusion, then it's like something's missing and you feel kind of silly. I've definitely been there myself. So that's a great comment. So thank you for that. Okay, so let's see. So Chris asked, how much does it cost? So the Small Talk Quickies Masterclass is actually really, really affordable. I mean, for as much as like dinner and a movie for two, you're getting everything you need to master small talk in one day. So it's 2 hours live training for $67. That's only if you register now before Saturday. And then it goes up to $87. And also if you register in the next hour, you get a bonus MP3 where you hear me talking to another expert, putting these things into practice. So yes, $67, that's US dollars. So Michelle asks, any advice for how to recover from feeling awkward during a conversation? I feel anxiety and then my right brain stops working. So that's a great question, Michelle. And it's something that, hey, we all go through that sometimes. And one of the things I always tell my clients and students is just because a conversation or a whole social experience, a date, anything starts awkwardly, doesn't mean it has to stay that way. I mean, gosh, having gone on over 100 first dates, I can honestly say that most of them started out a little bit awkward because that is the nature of a date. You're meeting with a stranger. You're both putting yourselves out there and you both kind of want to put your best foot forward. So a lot of times they started out awkward, but I honestly can't think of one that ended awkwardly. Maybe towards the beginning, at the beginning of my little dating experiment. But nowadays, I trust that even if it starts awkward, doesn't mean it has to end that way. And if you are in that mindset, it relaxes you instantly. The other way to get out of that anxiety and that awkwardness is to change your point of view and see yourself as the giver instead of the beggar, as I say. So instead of seeing yourself as like taking something from someone by conversing with them, you think, okay, well, how can I be of value? What am I giving to the conversation? Why is it beneficial to someone to talk to me? And oftentimes just your presence is the most valuable thing. Oftentimes people just want to know that you're listening to them. They want to, they feel awkward themselves and maybe they're waiting for somebody to approach them. They're waiting for someone to ask them the right questions, to draw them out of their shell. So when you see yourself kind of as the host of your space, that's when you are no longer scared and anxious and where you're actually feeling like, okay, I have something to offer. And by being fully present instead of cowering away, I'm doing the other person a favor. I'm making them feel more comfortable. Okay, so great question. Let's see, I see lots more interesting questions. So Tomas, I think his name is, says, I have social anxiety, which means I always think about the conversation after finishing it. How do I get rid of it? And also I can't even express myself. I speak quickly, stammer, can't even pronounce any words because of that. Okay, so there are a couple of questions there. So thinking about the conversation after. So I think as introverts, this is another pitfall we often fall into, where we start to actually overthink our responses and we think, oh, did I say something wrong? Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe that person is judging me harshly. And so this is something, again, mindfulness practices and rituals help with a lot, as well as getting into the mindset of what do I have to give? And the other here, this is the other really, really key thing with social anxiety and with overcoming this sort of overthinking and getting down on yourself. So the key is to go into any situation, any social situation, seeing it as an experiment rather than a test. So you are process focused instead of outcomes focused. This is how I got good at dating. I feel weird saying that, but I can honestly say that I could go on a first date with anybody and it would feel pretty natural because I was willing to go on these dates and see them as an experiment rather than, oh, I need a certain outcome. I need this person to like me. I need this date to go perfectly. I need to always impress them with what I say. No, I focused on how I felt on the date. I went with an attitude of curiosity and presence and saw it as an experiment, not in a way that it's an experiment and these aren't humans. I saw them as real humans. It's not like that, but I saw it as my own kind of way of feeling things out, of being more open and being process focused instead of outcome focused. So the next time that you go to a social event, instead of focusing on how you can impress people and being hard on yourself, focus on just doing the actions and celebrating those actions. So focus on using one bridge statement, for example, and celebrating that you just tried that out and see how it feels, see what followed. Okay, so, and again, one thing at a time. That reduces your anxiety a lot. All right. So Melissa asks, any suggestions on what to do when you really want to be left alone while a random stranger is trying to talk to you? For example, I often go to the dog park and I have my face in a book and headphones on, but people still approach me. That's very interesting. I wonder where you live that people still approach you. Probably not a big city like New York where, I don't know, or Toronto. I'm in Canada, so Toronto comes to mind where people just, they don't want to talk to you. So that's interesting. Yeah, I think my suggestion would have been to put headphones on or that kind of thing. But I think if they're still approaching you, if you're very direct from the beginning and say, sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but I don't have much time. I just want to read this book, or I'm just at a really good part of my book, then, I mean, that's really all you have to say. And when you're using more closed body language, usually that does deter a lot of people. So this is kind of the opposite. What I'm trying to teach people in this webinar how to, or this Facebook Live, how to actually like feel comfortable and talk to people. But if you're in the state of like where you want to recharge and you want to be alone, know that that's perfectly okay. It's nothing to feel guilty about. And then keep it really clear and simple with when telling them that, you know, oh, I'm just kind of occupied right now. I'm just into this book. Sorry, I don't want to be rude. People will get that, but I think the reason why we introverts are hesitant to do that is because we actually feel like it's wrong. We feel guilty about it. So know that it's not wrong to need your alone time. It actually makes you more able to be present and engaging when you are social. Okay, let's see. More questions. So Michelle says, I love that. Be the host. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. Let me see the other questions. This is really cool, doing this Facebook Live thing. Again, this is my first one, so I'm really loving the interaction and all the positive comments. It's wonderful to see. Let's just looking for more questions because my scrolling is very slow. Okay, so someone said that they find they have a lot of nervous energy. Someone else says, I use gossip as an alternative rather than asking questions. Okay. So as far as the nervous energy goes, Again, that's something that it has a lot to do with how you prepare ahead of time. So I'll go back to the dating example. So in early on, especially if it was someone I was kind of more interested in, I would be a lot more nervous. But I found if I would just do things to distract myself ahead of time, so it's all about having the right activities for your mind. Introverts we're inwardly focused. Our hamster needs something to play with. Otherwise, it tears things up, right? And it makes us very nervous and anxious. So I recommend either mindfulness activities or a flow activity. So flow activities kind of get you into a state where you lose sense of time and you're really focused on that. So things like cooking, creative expression, things like rock climbing, they get you in a state of flow, and it really reduces your anxiety, and it helps to stop you from overthinking before the event, because the nervousness arises before the socializing most of the time. It's your anticipation of what's going to happen. Okay, and I also do some visualizations. Sometimes I'll visualize myself. I'll take a deep breath and I'll visualize myself like as if there's a zipper along my chest and it's opening up. So imagine it's like my heart opening. So imagine the armor is being peeled away. So I'm open to the other person, wherever I'm going. Yes. Okay, so Keith says can't click on that link or copy paste. Okay. Marco, can you try and I wonder if there's another place I can put it, or maybe Marco, if you can try pasting it in the comments. I don't know if Facebook makes it so that you can't put that there. But in any case, I'm going to paste it as soon as this live is over. I'll put it in the description so you can get it. Just wondering if anybody else pinned. Okay, so I'm pinning this comment where I linked to the small talk quickies. I think you should be able to. Can we have a link to the landing page? Yeah. Okay. Let me know, anybody else, if you can click on the link, or if you can't click on the link. Someone says I'm a good salesperson. Oh, thanks. But I'm not a good technical person, so this is my downfall. Yes, but I do really believe in what I'm doing, and I've seen the results in my students and clients. So I'm happy to share that with you, and I'd love to see you guys there so that I can give you those done for you scripts and tools and techniques so you don't have to overthink things. You can go in with less anxiety. You can go into your next date, your next event with coworkers, your next barbecue, and experiment and have fun trying out. Have fun. It is kind of fun. Trying out these different tools, phrases, questions, and story templates, one step at a time in your own introverted way. I never, ever, ever ask introverts to try to be more extroverted or to push themselves way out of the comfort zone. It's all about doing things in your own introverted way, because introverts can be great at making connections, on socializing. In fact, we can excel beyond a lot of extroverts because we're really good at getting to the meaning, more depth, and making true connections rather than just staying stuck in meaningless small talk. We can get to that smart small talk. So Tomas says, can I change from an introverted person into an extroverted person by practicing socializing a lot somehow? So that's a very good question. So I believe that, and research has shown that introversion is a static trait. So your introversion is something you're born with, but your behavior can change. So introverts actually have more gray matter in their brain than extroverts. We are biologically shown to be different than extroverts. However, you might behave in a more extroverted way over time. So you might develop more social skills, which introverts can have good social skills, but it will still be draining for you to socialize a lot. So you'll still have to honor your introvert energy needs. You'll still have to be kind to yourself when you speak, when you need more time to speak. You'll still have to use more of an introvert friendly approach so that you don't burn out and so that you don't be too hard on yourself. Okay, so you'll still be introverted, but you'll be an introvert who has great social skills. Okay, so Marco says, everyone copy the link that was just posted, copy it and open it in a new tab. It will lead you to the page directly. Okay, thanks for explaining that, Marco. That puts my mind at ease. That's for those of you, I don't know if there's anyone here, you can let me know if you've been following Introvert Spring for a long time, so maybe 2 years or more. I'd love if you like raise your hand in the comments, because I just laugh when I think of the evolution of Introvert Spring. We've been around for over 4 years now, and a lot of my early webinars, and even still some of my webinars, had a lot of technical problems, and my website was really ugly at the beginning. But look how we've grown. Now we've reached millions of people. Like I said before, I've been on HuffPost, CBC Radio, the Chicago Tribune. So I feel like, you know, I had this vision. I'm kind of off topic, but I had this vision of reaching hundreds of thousands of introverts and having this introvert movement when I first started Introvert Spring. And I was just like this poor, destitute blogger wandering the world. And this was like a crazy dream. And now look, it's beyond what I ever imagined. So yeah, props if any of you have been with me for a while. We're living the dream, you know, the introvert revolution is real. And to tie that into what we're talking about today, introverts need to know that we're not inferior to extroverts, especially when it comes to conversation and connection skills. You can be just as charismatic, just as intriguing, just as engaging as any extrovert, and you can have fulfilling relationships by following the teachings that I gave you today, as well as the done-for-you tools that I give you in the Small Talk Quickies Masterclass for Introverts, which again is taking place very, very soon. I know you've got a lot of summertime events coming up, so in just 2 hours, I'm going to give you everything that you need to master small talk, become a small talk ninja in a day, and feel more at ease in conversation. All right? Okay, so go ahead and click that link. And if you like this Facebook Live, please do share it. I guess that's how these things spread. Again, this is my first one, so please do share it. If you are still having trouble with the link, just stick around for a couple minutes and I'm gonna post it in the description and probably post it separately on my page as well. So let me know what you got out of this live. What was the most interesting aspect? What resonated with you? In the comments. I'm going to read them all as soon as we're finished. And thank you all for joining me. Thank you. Mwah. It's been a pleasure. All right, have a good day, everyone. Cheers.